also unpack questions about racism in publishing and cultural appropriation and who gets to write what.
Let's discuss the Colby Wilkens fake Indigenous book talk drama. I am surprised that only a handful of creators have talked about this so far, particularly when it feels like it keeps happening again and again with authors like appropriating cultures that they're not a part of. Like Rebecca Kwong really just went right into like the thick of modern day publishing issues when she wrote Yellowface. Like, how does this keep happening? Colby Wilkens is being called out for her latest novel, If I Stopped Haunting You, a romance that centres around a character with Native American ancestry, which she claims to have based on herself. This was until Wilkens was called out by the Tribal Alliance Against Frauds, or TAAF, who I'd not heard of because I'm not American, but it turns out that they are a whole organisation dedicated to investigating pretenders, people who claim to have Indigenous ancestry for whatever reason, but then after some genealogists researched their family tree, turns out they were lying. And we can see the TAAF acknowledges that it doesn't always come from a malicious place when people lie about their heritage. It can just be that they've got their wires crossed and they don't fully understand their ancestry, and so they made an attempt to reach out to her and clear up any confusion, but she seemingly did not take their olive branch and has gone on with her release, essentially commodifying and exploiting a culture that she actually has no ties to at all. The TAAF goes on to say that multiple accusations were made about her being an erroneous Choctaw Cherokee, and that the confusion was to do with this guy, her ancestor William Henry Adams. It turns out that in the late 19th century there were actually two different men with this same name, one who was a Cherokee Native American and one who was a white settler. She thought that the Native American was her ancestor, actually it was the white settler. So what's the problem here? Well, Wilkens retweeted a post that alleged that this book deal that she'd made was worth $250,000. That's an awful lot of money, and it has been completely off of the back of this ancestry that was not in fact true. Like, her entire angle behind this free book deal was, I'm going to reflect on my own culture, and it's from a marginalised group of people that very few writers out there can actually talk about with any authenticity. Now that's been completely taken away. Her books, there's no value to them anymore. That USP is completely gone, and it's more than that, it's tainted because she is in fact impersonating and taking that spot away from an actual Indigenous author who could have benefited from this book deal more than her. I think this issue has been compounded further by the accusations that Wilkens actually lied about being registered as a Native American. Again, I had to look into this because I'm not familiar with any of this, but apparently in America, if you do have an Indigenous background, you have to supply genealogical evidence to get officially registered as such. Otherwise, that's how they weed out the people who are just pretending for clout. And she said that she was registered, but in fact never was. And they've also said that all this time she's claimed to be part of this culture, has used it as the impetus for this book deal, but has never once practiced or lived any aspect of her life in the Native American culture. She very much is just an everyday Caucasian American. As we saw at the start, Wilkens' TikTok page has been put on private, which never a good sign. That's usually an admission of guilt. And it's just so interesting to me as well, seeing these comments under this news article. The parallels to Yellowface are really jumping out. These conservative readers, they're going to spout their brain rot in support of her. And all of a sudden she'll get this new following that is completely different to what she intended. As one of the members of the TAAF rightly explained, this kind of appropriation is actively harmful because she is not just taking the place of a genuine Native American author who could actually speak to the historic mistreatment and marginalisation of Indigenous cultures, but the fact that they got like $250,000 allegedly for this 3-book deal, which I can well believe because romance is probably the most lucrative genre out there, and a culture that is already underrepresented being completely capitalized by someone outside of it. I mean, it is rough. That, to quote, first they want to exterminate all of us, now they want to literally be us. Yep. Now, if you were to take a wild guess at who is publishing this book, just take a guess if you didn't already know. Who do you think it would be? Oh dear. Yep. This checks out. This makes a whole lot of sense. If anyone's keeping score, this year alone, we are 3 for 3 on St. Martin's Press associated controversies. It started with the Islamophobic employee, which created an entire boycott movement. Then we had the controversial PR box that contained unsolicited intimate items. And now we have this big offensive book deal. I mean, St. Martin's Press, my goodness. At what point is Macmillan just going to reshuffle everyone in that imprint's management? Because clearly someone at the top is making all the wrong choices, and, maybe just reshuffle them, get some new blood in. But what are your thoughts on this whole situation? Comment below.